I think in times past it was probably a much more hopeful environment to grow up in terms of, the two factories were there that supplied a great deal of work. And then we had IBM that was also a great employer. Well, they've all gone. And that's the same anywhere. That's not just Wang. That's, they're short on all these people everywhere.
I moved to Wangaratta in the early 2000s with two young children as a single mum. And my first impression of Wangaratta was it's an extremely cliquey town.
Wangaratta is not so much by itself. If you look at this entire area, so Wangaratta, Wodonga, Cobram, but all the towns in between, so Numurkah, Yarrawonga, Wangaratta and Wodonga are the two biggest cities, rural cities in this area. So predominantly they've got the higher proportion of drug-related crime, but drug-related crime spreads all across what we did call Eastern Region Division. And the most prevalent drug at the moment is probably cocaine, but it goes through cycles. The most prevalent drug used to be methamphetamine.
So currently I live 17 kilometres north of Wangaratta in a small country town called Springhurst. Doesn't have very much going for it, but we enjoy our quiet life. I come from farming stock, so being able to grow things, farm fresh, eggs, those sort of things. Look, realistically, I mean, apart from the fact that when I first moved here, I found that it was a really cliquey, old people, and that sounds terrible, but it was a real mature community of, you'd get told if you didn't grow up in the community and if you weren't multi-generational, you weren't brought in with open arms. It's a very old, tight-knit community with old money, and there's growth now, but there wasn't.
Every one of the larger rural centres have their issues: mental health, drugs, violence, crime, theft. I think what we're seeing more and more in the country is that overflow of what we see on the news that's happening in Melbourne. When I was the Detective Senior Sergeant, I had units at Wodonga, Cobram and Wangaratta, so that's all of the investigative units within ED4. I think one of the most tragic things about drugs within our community is that good people, good kids, can go off the rails and then their family become affected. No immediate impact, it only impacts one person, then it impacts two, then it impacts four, then it impacts eight. The violence connected to it and the deceptions connected to it, and then the organisational structure around selling drugs. Some drug selling networks have a hierarchy just like the military. There's people in charge of certain things and there's an ultimate leader. So Wangaratta is not the drug capital of the state or country by any means. By and all, I would say 97–95% of the population aren't on drugs, but I'd say a lot of people have been affected by others who are on drugs and drug use.
These kids that were involved were just the kids that were involved. There was the big wigs above them who made the money, and basically once you got into the group, there was no way out of it. The typical drug story that you're in it and you can't get out of it. So that was 2018, and ice was ripe. They used to say Bright has snow, but Wang has ice. I was a case manager. My clients would have been, the drug ones, would have been between probably 18 and 44. I don't see it now. That doesn't mean it's not there. I would say like anywhere, it's there. You know, Shep Benalla was my main focus of work, and it was rife. Cobram, all those out of the way places. So, and they all knew Wang as a really hot spot. And I would say it's still around, well and truly, but I don't see it. Per head of population, would it be any different than anywhere else? I don't think so. There's probably as much of it in the city as there is here in the country. Although I think country kids might be exploited more readily.